Is open civil war about to break out amongst the Republican Party? I say that because obviously Donald Trump got his butt kicked on Friday, where he couldn't even get his, if you can call it his, quote unquote, American health care bill to the floor of the House of Representatives to get a vote. And then Mr. Trump went on a recorded broadcast and cried a river about how the Freedom Caucus didn't do him right. Then he thought, I guess, a bit better of it, and said that he couldn't actually be the face of complaining about them. So he decided to blame the Democrats, claiming that he couldn't even get one Democratic vote. Well, newsflash, a-hole, you were trying to repeal the signature legislation of President Obama and one of the centerpieces of the Democratic Party as far as health care was concerned. So in attacking them, did you honestly expect that they would cast a single vote to help you? I don't think so. But that being said, Mr. Trump obviously called in his cronies, principal of which is this witch that you see in front of you, Jeanine Piro. This woman loves the dirty drawers that Donald Trump obviously wears. And if he grabbed her by the unmentionable, she would probably come all over herself. With that being said, this woman, in support of Mr. Trump, gave the following statement on her cable news show.
The opening statement. Paul Ryan needs to step down as Speaker of the House. The reason? He failed to deliver the votes on his health care bill, the one trumpeted to repeal and replace Obamacare, the one that he had 7 years to work on, the one he hid under lock and key in the basement of Congress, the one that had to be pulled to prevent the embarrassment of not having enough votes to pass. But this bill didn't just fail. It failed when Republicans had the House, the Senate, the White House. And the timing? It failed within the first 70 days of President Donald Trump's administration. A president who made replacement of Obamacare the hallmark of his campaign, and then used valuable political capital to accomplish it. You know, Americans elected the one man they believed could do it, a complete outsider, someone beholden to no one but them. And Speaker Ryan, you come in with all your swagger and experience, and you sell him a bill of goods, which ends up a complete and total failure. And you allow our president, in his first 100 days, to come out of the box like that? Based on what? Your legislative expertise, your knowledge of the arcane ins and outs of the bill writing process, your relationships, what? Your drinks at the Hay Adams with your pals? Folks, I want to be clear. This is not on President Trump. No one expected a businessman to completely understand the nuances, the complicated ins and outs of Washington and its legislative process. How would he know which individuals upon whom he would be able to rely? Many of them friends and establishment colleagues of Speaker Ryan. You, on the other hand, Speaker Ryan, know very well who are the 15 hardliners, the 10 moderates, and all the other ones. You, of course, know their demands. And if you didn't, why didn't you? Some of them actually shut down the government over Obamacare, and you couldn't figure out what you needed to do to get their support? You knew no Democrat was going to support it, and that you would have to rely on Republicans. How could you possibly misjudge this? And where was the whip Scalise in all of this? How tough a lift was this? And why start with this if you're not sure you've got the votes? Now, I certainly have not spoken with the president about any of this, but I can only imagine that he and his aides took on health care because they believed you had his back, and you didn't. You didn't even test the waters. You had no consensus. And I hate it when Schumer and Pelosi get to beat their drums and talk about what a great day it is for America that President Trump failed, when even they know that Obamacare is a total disaster. The president, on the other hand, is handling this with dignity. And he doesn't seem to want to criticize you, saying this.
I want to thank Paul Ryan. He worked very, very hard. I will tell you that.
Mr. President, all reports are that you wanted to handle the tax cuts first, but that Ryan convinced you to go with health care. If that's the case, not only has he hurt you with his health care debacle, but the ripples that will hurt you as you try to overhaul the tax code will come back at you. The Freedom Caucus, feeling emboldened by their win with this healthcare failure, will now dig their heels in on the tax cuts. Ryan has hurt you going forward, and he's got to go. The shame of this is that in addition to putting your faith in someone who did not have your back, you made the decision, as opposed to letting Obamacare explode, as it inevitably will, you decided to take it on anyway.
Waited 2 years, it's going to explode like you've never seen an explosion. Nobody's going to be able to afford it. It's a disaster. And that's politically what we should do, but we don't want to do that. We want to get something done and get it done right.
I never put my faith in you, Ryan. I questioned you all through the campaign. When you distanced yourself from candidate Trump whenever you felt the prevailing winds blowing against Trump. To me, your loyalty was always in question. Yet what was never in question to me was your intelligence, your savvy, and your comprehension of the system. So why? Why would you let this happen? What was your agenda? The reason, Ryan, you and all your Washington colleagues are held in such low esteem with the American people is because you've forgotten about us. In spite of the fact that you rhinos were all working against him, though, the president joined with you. And he relied on you, trusting you, believing you had his back, and you didn't. The American people won't forget this, and neither should the president. And that's my open. Tell me.
All right. Now, a couple of things. Number one, this bitch sounds like she's drunk. I'm serious. And her voice just is irritating. Let's just say that. I don't know who her ex-husband, because she's a divorcee, but I don't know how he stood it as long as he did. Now, let's get to the really heart of the matter. Number one, Donald Trump campaigned for years about getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, okay? And he stated that he had a plan that was going to insure everybody for lower premiums and give them better health care. That's what he said, okay? So when a bill comes out that doesn't do what he says it's supposed to do, it's a small wonder that the Republicans, the moderate Republicans, balked at it. Specifically, mayors of states who had accepted the Medicare expansion. Now, since he said he was the only one that could do it, why is Ms. Piro blaming Paul Ryan since Mr. Trump said he didn't need any help? According to her, the Affordable Care Act is going to explode. Her and Donald Trump. Funny thing about it, I don't see where either one of them or hardly any of the Republicans have actuarial degrees so that they would be able to chart and properly assess the Affordable Care Act. They are basing their statements of its implosion on the butthurt words of the CEO of Aetna, who was trying to leverage himself into a position so that his company could merge with Humana, and when it didn't, he basically made those comments. The Affordable Care Act will survive. Now, are there things wrong with it? Absolutely there are. Can they be fixed? Absolutely they can, but it's going to take the Democrats and the Republicans to put forth the proper legislation in order to fix the problems, i.e. the rising premiums, which honestly have not risen for the most part at the same levels that they were rising prior to the Affordable Care Act. So they can do something about that. They can also do something about the prescription drug prices, such as allowing the government to negotiate the prices like every other country does. Ms. Piro now seems to believe that anybody who was going to vote against the American health care bill, anybody who was going to vote against it, is a rhino, Republican in name only. Nah, I don't think so. Some people have their dignities, and some people have certain lines that they won't cross. And that particular bill was a bad bill. Even a lot of the so-called rhino Republicans that she's referring to have said that. Now, in the beginning of this video, she lied, because there's no way that 12 hours before this show airs that Donald Trump puts out a tweet telling everybody to watch her show. She told him exactly what she was going to do on this particular show and how she was going to support him and throw Mr. Ryan under the bus. Seems funny to me that Donald Trump didn't know how hard this was going to be. He said it was going to be easy. Seems to me it's funny that he expected, as I stated earlier, to get Democratic support. There was no flipping way. The one thing that the Democrats can hang their hats on when they first passed the Affordable Care Act is they stuck together, even though they knew it was going to cost some of them their political offices. They still stuck together and passed it. Something that the Republicans don't know anything about. So as far as dignity is concerned, Donald Trump doesn't have any, because within 24 hours he had reverse field and was crying the blues, blaming everybody and their brother except himself. He should have left it alone. Mr. Trump wasn't looking for bipartisan support on this thing, because he never called a single Democrat to the White House to ask for that support. He knew he wasn't going to get it. So that being said, open warfare, in my opinion, is about to break out. Now, everybody's saying the nice and proper things. Mr. Trump says he still believes in Mr. Ryan, and Mr. Ryan says that, you know, he still supports Donald Trump. But there are two factions that are rolling. There is the faction that Donald Trump can do no wrong, which is Jeanine Piro and butthurt Sean Hannity, who basically said the same thing, that it wasn't the president's fault that this thing failed. Well, the last I heard, the buck stops at the president's doorstep. So if there's any failure, it absolutely is his. And then you're going to have the other faction, which is, I guess, going to be the Paul Ryan, Rance Priebus faction, which is already fighting against the Steve Bannon, Sean Hannity faction in the White House. So pretty soon you're going to see open warfare break out, and I am going to love it. 2018, I'm hoping that it'll be a year of major change.